Hey there, Internet. Welcome to the Hard On Gear channel, where I discuss and review my used and abused knives and gear so that you know what is or isn't worth spending your hard-earned money on. If what you're looking for is a multi-tool that's small enough to fit on your keychain or in the coin pocket of your jeans, the Leatherman Squirt PS4 is what you're going to want to pick up. At the size of about 2/3 of a Bic lighter, the Leatherman Squirt packs one heck of a punch for what a small little piece of gear this is. So just the quick history is why I picked this thing up. I wanted to add a multi-tool to my daily EDC. Now, I'm not one to have a big extravagant amount of things carried on my person on a daily basis, outside of what I already have to carry for work and the odd stuff that I have in my pockets, but I wanted something that wasn't big enough that I had to throw it on my hip. I didn't really need something else clipped to my pockets because there's plenty of other knives that take those places. So I just wanted to be able to slip something in my pocket, forget about it, because there were many times where I needed a set of pliers for something, just the odd little thing. I'm not a very mechanical person, but I do have to bullshit my way through the odd scenario where I do need something like this, and I find myself using my knives to pry and twist and do other things, and it's not always the best, or sometimes using my fingers with gloves when what you really need is a small set of pliers. So this thing can deliver quite a bit of performance for the size and the weight of it. So for the longest time, many years, I just carried the Recon 1 in AUS 8. That has recently been replaced by Spyderco's Manix 2, the Esee Izula II, and the Leatherman Squirt PS4. If you're sitting there wondering why the hell is this idiot carrying 3 knives on him, you can go ahead and check the video out where I describe the method behind the madness of why I chose to go with 3 different knives instead of just carrying 1 or even 2 tools. This is just something that I wanted to try out. I'll go a little more into it in this video, but if you do want to get the whole thing, check that video out and the individual videos for these 2 knives as well. So this little thing costs about $40 American. It's about $50 to $52 on Amazon Canada right now, so $52 Canadian, $40 American. You can get this version or the you can get this version, the PS4, which comes with the pliers. You can also get the ES4, which is the same multi-tool, except it's got a set of wire strippers here instead. So for your electricians out there, that's a little more of a specialized tool. There's also the Leatherman Micra, which is the same thing but scissors, and it comes out to be a little bit longer, I believe, just at the tip here. Not very much, but just maybe a half a centimeter or so. But this is the one I went with because the pliers are really what I was after. And the other similar things on the market to this, the Gerber dime is the obvious example that this is always compared to, and I didn't really even consider it. Leatherman to me is just a better name for multi-tools. I figured this would be a pretty safe bet. There's nothing but great reviews about this thing, and for the price, why not? The other thing, I guess, you could go with all the different Swiss Army models, and I've had Swiss Army knives a couple in the past, but the novelty wore off very quick at a young age, and I wanted something a little bit different, and I wanted to try something out that I hadn't tried yet. So this is where I ended up. So the length, when folded up, is just a little over 2 inches. Like, yeah, 2 1/8. It's very much just a little over 2 inches, and when it's folded out, with the pliers fully extended, what do we got here? About 3 inches, 3.5. Yeah, we're looking at about 3 3/4 inches when the whole thing's extended. So less than 4 inches. I mean, this is going to be smaller than almost any pocket knife. Let's do some size comparisons because this is kind of hilarious. As tiny as this thing is, the Rat number 2, which is quite a small pocket knife, looks gigantic next to this. So let's just take a peek at, yeah, I mean, that even extended all the way out. Here, there, we'll make it look as big as it possibly can look. It still doesn't quite measure up, so very, very tiny little tool here. So let's fold that back up. So yeah, there's the Osborne 940-2 from Benchmade, which looks gigantic compared to this thing. Manix 2 from Spyderco, which of course quite a bit larger. And if you really want to see the size, you can put this thing next to the Recon 1, and it is just a little thing. And of course, here is a real multi-tool. This is the Byberry 21-in-1 multi-tool. I think it's 21-in-1. Probably pop something up here. And there's also links down in the affiliate link section of the biography, or the about section rather. If you want to check out any of these tools and you want to help support the channel, just click through the link to buy one of these knives and tools if you're interested. But yeah, this is a full-size multi-tool, similar to what you'd get from a larger Leatherman or Gerber or anything else. Too big, too bulky, too large for anything I'd want to carry on a regular basis. So that stays in my pocket now at all times, whether I'm in my jeans or I'm in my 511 strike pants that I'm using for work. They're just, it disappears, and you put it in the right spot, and you really will forget that it's there. So let's also look at the length of the blade of this thing, which is not a big knife, and I haven't actually used it for anything yet. I'm trying to keep this thing razor sharp in case I ever did need it, but we're gonna probably dull it out a little bit right now, and then I'll touch it up in a minute. So blade length of 1.6 inches. I looked the spec sheet up, didn't measure that quick, and I guess the frame, the aluminum frame of the thing is 2¼ inches. Makes the whole thing 3.85 inches. Oh, math is hard. Now the whole weight of this thing is 2 ounces, which makes this thing weigh pretty much nothing. The Osborne 940 here, what's that? 2.8, I'll pop it up on the screen here. It's something like closer to the 2.6, 2.8 ounce range. Very, very lightweight pocket knife, and well, that shows you how damn light the 940-2 is, because the Leatherman Squirt weighs 2 ounces, so it's not that much lighter than this really lightweight knife. Don't let that scare you, though, because this disappears in just about any pocket. The Leatherman Squirt weighs less than half as much as the Manix No. 2, and this is actually a thick little chunk of metal for the most part. If you really look at what this is made of and what's in here, that's mostly stainless steel with those aluminum handle scales on the outside. So really, when you think about how much metal is in there, this is quite a heavy hunk of metal as well, but still. So the Recon 1 here is weighing in a little closer to 6 ounces or something around that line, 5.9, 6 ounces. So yeah, that makes the Leatherman Squirt about 1/3 of the weight of the Recon 1. So if you're someone who doesn't even need to carry a pocket knife, and you're looking at just carrying this small mini multi-tool as your only knife, your only EDC carry, if you don't use a lot of knife stuff, or rather you don't have a lot of knife tasks in your day-to-day, you could probably get away with this thing and really just be comfortable carrying this super light, super compact little tool on you. And hey, you think about like 100 random situations where someone needs a tool or a knife or something like that for some kind of task. Even if they're asking for a knife, you could do a lot of things with something like this Rat Model 2, but this thing's got a lot of other little tools, well, a decent amount of other tools and options to it. So all those different situations, I'd say you probably get just as much use out of this for the knife task. Plus, you can also do all the other things this thing can do with the screwdrivers, the scissors, and the pliers and other things. So this is still very nice, and you can still do a lot of non-knife things with knives if you have to, but it's not what they're made for, and they're more likely to break. So maybe this is the way to go if you only wanted to carry one thing. Unless you're a knife enthusiast and you like carrying this shiny stuff in your pocket just to see what you can get away with. You can go with a bigger multi-tool, but again, for something this size, that you can get a lot of the same capabilities of something like the old Leatherman Juices. So none of these tools are locking on this Leatherman Squirt. The Leatherman Squirt and the Micra, they're so small, and they're in order to keep the weight down, the locks, I'm sure, would just be a little bit too much as far as size and weight. But the locking of the pliers, like as far as that feature, these really aren't going to get they're not really going to get disengaged. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. So once you have these locked in, they're pretty sturdy, and you can't one-hand open this like you could with an OHT or Super Tools. Pretty heavy action on this, but I've only had this for 2.5, 3 months. Full disclosure right here, I swear there would have been a million times when I didn't have a multi-tool where I would have needed one. But I'm realizing now, it probably only happens like twice a year. It just seems like it's a lot more when you don't have it. Now that I've had it for 3 months and haven't really had to use the pliers, I'm kind of disappointed. So I found some purpose for them. I have used them to, I used them to take the screw out of the 940-2 after I stripped it out the first evening that I had this. So my own dumbass fault, and that's very typical of me to do with tiny Torx head screws. I need to buy a better Torx set than what I have right now. There's a little bit of coating stripped off of the pliers on the inside teeth there. I think that's the only thing I've done so far with this. Oh, no, I lied. I broke off a window handle, and I used this to grip on and get a better grip to close it. Oh, and let's not forget to talk about the wire clippers, which are one of the best reasons for having one of these in your pocket if you're someone who typically carries a pocket knife, because you do not want to dull your nice pocket knife, especially if it's something like an S30V or something with a higher hardness that's more likely to chip than roll. Then if you go through something like a piece of wire or a staple, you're possibly going to risk chipping the blade, and that's going to be a pain in the ass to get out. I'm pretty good at avoiding that with my pocket knives. I save that kind of stuff for my carbon steel knives for the most part. But yeah, the wire cutters here give you the option to give a little snip with that instead of dulling your knife. Let's just make sure those wire cutters can actually do what they're supposed to be able to do. So there's a staple doubled up. Ooh, no issue. Gotta find that. Let's try a paper clip. No problem. No problem. How about a thicker paper clip? Let's just see right quick. I can't imagine we're gonna have any issues though. Nope. No problem. How about doubled up? Ooh, a little more resistance. Let's move up here and try again. Okay. There are no locking features. It's a slip joint all the way around with all the tools. So yeah, you've got the, on this first side here, so we'll say the keychain side, you've got the file and the knife. That's what you're looking at for that side. This part is just the inside of the pliers, the inside stainless steel casing. And the knife here is this typical Leatherman 420HC American-made steel. I've tried to look around a little bit and I couldn't figure it out, but I believe the rest of the tools on here are just a cheaper stainless steel. They might be something like 440A. They might be a little more of a generic stainless steel used for cheaper tools and such. I'm not too sure. Somebody can look into that for me, maybe in comment down below. 420HC, so you're better of the 400 series steels for the knife, so you're going to get some fairly decent edge retention, toughness, and it's going to be fairly corrosion resistant. It's not going to be a big pain in the ass to sharpen. So the nail file side, I've used a decent amount just to hit off nicks. I do a lot of things where I end up nicking my fingernails, and if they get a little bit of a chip in them, if I end up doing jiu-jitsu or something like that, I want to be able to quickly take those nicks out. I'd say in the order of things I've used the most, it'd be the file, the scissors, and then the pliers. On the other side here, you have the flathead standard screwdriver with this little bottle opener, and opposite of that, you've got the half of the Phillips head screwdriver, which is still better than not having any Phillips head on here. It would be nice to have a full profile 3D one, but in a pinch, I'm sure that'll do for most. I have tried that in one of the, it's more of a medium-sized Phillips head. Didn't actually catch it. I just couldn't quite get it to work, and so I had to go retrieve a screwdriver. But so 0 for 1 on the Phillips head on this so far, unfortunately. So on the other side, you have the scissors, which are one of the handiest things to have on a small multi-tool this size. These are actually pretty damn decent. And watching the videos, they look so tiny. I didn't think they'd be very comfortable or user-friendly, but they're actually not that bad. I have used them to cut off these little cardstock, I guess what you call them, little advertisement thingies. This is just your standard printer paper, just so you can see how these things work. The issue is when you get deeper into the paper, it's a little bit more uncomfortable to guide yourself through without crumpling it up. But if you're just looking to do some fine work around the edges, I'm sure you'll be fine. It's not going to be as accurate as a full pair of scissors, because each time you cut, you're going to have to readjust, and that's going to cause you to get a little off pattern, but it's still better than nothing. While I did have to take my time doing so, I actually cut this piece of cardstock Hog logo out with this little teeny tiny pair of scissors. Just very slowly, very carefully, just testing it out. Performance and the comfort of these things are actually quite surprising for the size of them. That little spring in there is actually pretty decent, and it's quite sturdy, and I wasn't sure how they'd be able to make a spring in here that would last for years. It's under the typical Leatherman, I think, 25-year warranty. They seem to be pretty decent quality, so we'll find out how they hold up over time, especially as far as the sharpness of them go. Full flat grind on this little knife. I guess would you technically call that a chisel grind, as it's not technically a full flat. That's just me not being a blade geometry expert here, but I'm sure we'll correct myself down here in the comments, and or I'm sure I'll put some little tags here to make sure we're getting the right information out. But I think that's technically a chisel grind because it's not sharpened on this side. I'm not sure what that little nick is there, but I seem to have got something on there. But I've been carrying this in my pocket quite a bit, and that bit does show up, so I've obviously dropped it or scratched it on something. I haven't used the keychain. I don't really expect to carry this on my keychain because I already have plenty of keys and a little flashlight in my key fab, so I don't really feel like adding another 2 ounces to that. It has banged around in my pockets with some other stuff, so I'm not surprised it's got a few scuffs. And like most of my stuff, I don't expect it to stay pretty for long, so I don't really worry too much about it. Oh, we're about to take this knife's virginity for the sake of the channel and just see how the cutting performance goes. Yeah, well, hey, brand new knife out of the package. You'd damn well hope it was sharp. Oh, we didn't test. Is it push cutting sharp? Well, probably not, right? I mean, it's not the knife. Well, okay. I mean, these are arbitrary things, of course, for what you... Well, hey, got a push cut. For what, keep... No, push cutting sharp out there. Yeah, I mean... decent cutting performance from this little knife. The only real issue, I guess, with something like this is that it's when they open from the outside, the tools are really handy and accessible, but you can't get as good of a grip as if, could you imagine if the scissors here were the knife and this was the sharpened edge. I could really get in there like with an actual folding knife. Yeah, you've got a little bit of ability to choke up with your finger on the front on most knives, and that gives you a little extra control. You can't really choke up on there without nicking your inside knuckle. Pros and cons of having accessible tools on the outside, but at this size, you just have to make sure you don't choke up too much on that when you're cutting. And a 2-finger grip's not what I'm used to using a knife, so this is not something I'll be using as a primary cutting tool. Not perfect cuts all the time, not a premium blade steel or anything like that, but it's still pretty damn decent. And again, I'll probably touch this thing up right after this just to keep a razor's edge on it as much as possible, but pretty decent. And let's see how it does against this piece of wood. Would you want to whittle with this thing? No. If this was the last thing on the planet Earth that you ever had in your possession and you had to try and make a spear and or shelter and or fire with it, again, not ideal. But as you can see, I can actually carve away some decent chunks of wood. Ugh. It certainly is a lot of work for me, and the 2-finger grip doesn't provide the best control. It does constantly want to slip out of my hand. So, yeah, I mean, what would you expect from something like this? Probably nothing much more than this. But if you wanted to see how it holds up, it can do a job, and your hands would certainly pay the price for it, but you would probably survive if you happened to keep this in your pocket and you got in a situation where you had to stay in the woods overnight. Just out of curiosity, let's see how it cuts paper now. Oh, hey. Oh, hey. Well, it's not like I carved a paddle out of a freaking log or anything like that, but okay, I think I got a little bit of a, yeah, maybe a little bit of a hang up right at the base of the blade. Maybe that was already there, but I was coming down pretty hard on it there. So I think overall this is held up just about perfect through that little tiny, bad rip, through that little bit of whittling. So hey, good job 420 HC. So unlike many Leatherman products, this doesn't come with the nylon sheath. It's obviously small enough that you wouldn't want to put it on your hip. Probably blend it with your belt. You probably wouldn't notice it. Why would you carry it there when you could just slip it in your pocket? I don't know. I lose the damn things like that if they're on a cheap nylon strap on my belt. Not that the Leatherman straps are that cheap, but I have lost a couple. So the Leatherman Squirt is pretty much just a keychain or a slip in your pocket kind of tool, which a lot of people carry something like this for the purpose of just a backup blade, because you can throw it in the bottom of your pocket of your jeans or whatever, or in your purse or in your backpack, car visor holder, whatever, something like that, whatever. You could pretty much find a place to put this where you're not going to notice it. It's not going to be inconvenient, but it's a good backup blade option as well if you just want to throw this in the bottom of your pocket behind your main folding knife. As far as the use and abuse rating goes for this little puppy, I gotta give it a 1 because I just haven't had the chance or the opportunity, or maybe I haven't been seeking out enough purposes to use this thing, and I've also been having plenty of other opportunities to use my main knives for things. So I've been waiting for the opportunity to use something like a set of pliers, and I have used the scissors for a couple of odd things here and there at work and the office. Mind you, I've pretty much always got better scissors around there, so I don't think to go to these right away. Still trying to break the old habits of using more functional tools. I'll try and experiment more for the sake of the channel with this stuff. Aesthetics, presentation overall, I mean, very attractive little package. Probably not the best way to phrase that, but this is the black version. It comes in a couple different colors. You can get it in, I think, blue and maybe red or something. On Amazon, you can go through the colors and pick out whatever you're looking for. You could haul this out, literally waiting in line at the bank, and just say, well, I'm going to trim my nails up, or like maybe my whoop strap is a little tweaked and I don't know what I do with it, but you get the idea anyways. You probably get away with hauling this out pretty much anywhere except for an airport, well, with beyond the customs and on the airplane, and you wouldn't really have any issues. Nobody's going to think that you're doing anything other than using a small little handy tool that, hey, look at that guy, he looks prepared. Yeah, point of the story is you could pretty much pull this out anywhere without drawing too many eyes or people thinking you're doing anything suspicious. Ambidexterity, my fellow Southpaws. I mean, it's relatively ambidextrous. You could say it's not, or they don't make an ambidextrous version, or that it's only favoring one side. I would assume they put the knife on the side that was the most handy for right-handed people. So I could see why you might want that blade on that side of your hand and not a little bit closer to this knuckle, because you can actually choke up a little bit more without risking hurting your hand or hurting your knuckle or slicing your finger as much, I guess. It's a minuscule difference, but you can actually choke up on the aluminum frame here a little bit more, the aluminum handle scales rather, without risking cutting your finger, whereas with your left hand, you really want to stay away from that. So that's something when I was going over the cutting performance, I guess I didn't really think about much because that's just what I'm used to, so I haven't really held this in my right hand. But you can choke up a little bit more. Ooh, hey, sharpening choil. Didn't notice that when I was doing the blade section, or I guess I didn't point it out, but there is a sharpening choil there. So just keep an eye out, left-handed people. You're probably going to be a little bit easier to cut your finger on this. With the right hand, you got a little bit more room to choke up. Still wouldn't recommend choking up on this too much because you're asking to get cut. I mean, the pliers are obviously ambidextrous. The scissors are kind of the same thing as the knife in that they're, I'm sure, designed to be used by right-handed people, so you got a little more distance from your grip to your thumb, but I don't notice any issue doing that one hand or the other. I don't think it's much harder for a left-handed person, so if you complain about that, I mean, whatever, maybe you're just being a little bit of a dick. So, Southpaw approved? Yeah, for sure. You could definitely say that this is not an ambidextrous tool or knife, but I'm going to say it is. I mean, it's very, very small little differences, again, in where the tools are placed. The knife and the scissors, again, the tools that are on the outside, obviously, they're going to be a little closer for one hand or the other, but still, very, very accessible tools for left-hand or right-handed people. Southpaw approved for sure. So we'll just talk a little bit about the functionality and the capabilities of this thing with the materials given and the package as small as it is with this little knife slash multi-tool. Now the 420HC blade steel's pretty damn solid for the price point, for the size of this thing. It's the same as what's in your buck 119s, buck 110s. A lot of good, say, budget but mid-range knives that are American made could be made with that 420HC knife steel. This is really the only 420HC I think I've ever owned. Never been a big buck fan just because they're too traditional and boring looking, and I know there's kind of two camps on this thing, and I kind of ride on the tactical black on black side. So how does this thing carry in the pockets? I put it in my back pocket a lot of the time, especially if I'm wearing my work pants, and I have noticed it if it's settled in the wrong spot when I'm driving, yeah, it's stabbing me in the butt, and I don't really like that. Not stabbing me like with the knife, of course, but just in an uncomfortable position. And all I gotta do is shift it to the left a little bit. Maybe it looks like I'm scratching my ass if somebody catches me doing it, but if that's my biggest concern as far as the carryability of this thing, I'll get over it. And actually, if I'm wearing my jeans, I tend to just slip this in my coin pocket. Speed of deployment, not really what this thing's made for, so it's certainly not comparable to a folding knife. It's as easy to deploy as any other multi-tool. I guess you could say the thumb slots could be dug in a little bit more. There could be something a little bit grippier, but then it would add to the bulk of the knife or make it a little bit more snaggy in the pocket. So this is, if you have any kind of a fingernail, you're going to be able to get in there. It's plenty sharp enough for that. All the tools have about the same accessibility. You can get them in or out with that little thumbnail or fingernail slot. They're a little tucked away, and if you have really short nails, you might have a little bit of issues at first, but I'm sure you could even probably just slightly modify those handle scales a little bit and shave something out and make it a little more accessible, but overall, it's pretty decent. The retention's pretty good on the slip joint. You've got a little half stop there, so if you did happen to open it and shut, like I almost did there a little too aggressively on my finger, you have a little bit of a safety-ish mechanism there to get you a little bit extra time to get out of the way. But they do tend to hold in here quite good. And if you give a little bit of a push, you're going to feel it spring back at you. But it is just a slip joint, so try and be a little bit cautious with it. Ergonomically, it is as good as it's going to be for something this size. The pliers are ergonomically quite comfortable. They fit in the hand beautifully. You can actually get a full choke up on this. Well, I guess depends on how meaty your hands are. If I'm too close up on that, my knuckles end up getting pinched in that higher pinch point of pliers. But I can get a pretty damn good grip on this if I have to start twisting and yanking or doing whatever to something. But other than that, they're small, and they'd be nicer if you get a full 4-finger grip on the handles. But 3-finger if you choke up, 2-finger for most of what you're doing, or 2-finger and a thumb, and they're pretty comfortable. They fit in the hand nicely. I really wasn't sure looking at the reviews for this if I was going to enjoy this, or if it was going to be big enough that I could comfortably use it without feeling like I was just fumbling it in my hand. And it really does surprise me how well this is built for even, I have a large hand, not a super large hand, I can squeeze into a medium, but large enough hands that I was surprised with the size of this thing, just how comfortable it still can be. But let's be real now, you're not going to be able to get a lot of fine, precise work done with this. Just Well, for one, you're probably going to be worried about your safety half the time, not getting choked up too high on the knife so you don't nick your finger. But you can't really, I mean, if you choke too high up with your thumb, you might end up impaling yourself. You've kind of got to watch yourself and remember that you're just dealing with a fine slip joint knife, and it's not something you're really going to be able to bear down on. And as far as, like, say, digging into a piece of wood, I'm nervous twisting or doing anything like that with a slip joint, because if you twist and put the pressure the wrong way, I don't want that to happen to my finger. It's not the kind of knife that you're going to want to do like precise woodwork or anything like that with. See, and normally I'm so used to putting my thumb on the back of a blade, I just don't like slip joints. That knife is really just there for me anyways. It's there for emergencies and for if I ever happen to need a razor sharp knife and I dulled everything else. As far as field reliability goes, this is probably only going to last you so long if you put this through a lot of hard use out in the bush. It's just not made for serious wear and tear. The maintenance of it, you throw a little bit of oil in the pivots once in a while, I'm sure you'll be fine. It's stainless steel, so it's not completely corrosion resistant, but it's going to hold up to most things. We'll see how it holds up here on the salty east coast of Canada, but I feel like most decent stainless steels, you're not really going to have to worry about this rusting too much, and say a little bit of oil once in a while will go a long way. There is some pocket lint building up just because I've had this in my pocket for 3 months. I do tend to do a lot of work outside where I'm going to get needles, tree needles and stuff like that caught in my gear. So it's got a little bit of filth in it. Maybe I'll throw some compressed air in there once in a while and clean it out. But not a lot of maintenance needed to something like this. And for something this, say, not cheap, but affordable, well-built, and for $40, if it does happen to wear down over the course of 5-10 years in a way that the warranty won't cover, I won't mind replacing it. And to avoid having to do extra maintenance to a piece of gear, I like sharpening my stuff. I could give a damn to sit there and polish it and dig out all the dust from the nooks and crannies. This isn't really a section that you need to talk about with multi-tools, but if I'm going to talk dumb self-defense and survival stuff with the rest of my knives, let's hypotheticalize what we would do if we were in a self-defense or survival situation and we had to use the Leatherman Squirt PS4. So self-defense wise, if you were in a situation where you had time to get this out of your pocket and tactically deploy the slip joint knife, well, you're dealing with somebody that you probably didn't have to pull a knife out on. You're probably dealing with an angry grandpa. You could probably kick him in the shin. There's almost no situation I could ever imagine where this is going to be a tool you have time to deploy and actually get to deploy, where you haven't already been stabbed, shot, whatever has happened or was going to happen to you, your hand's disabled, you're tied up. It's just unlikely. However, let's say you gave up your knives and, like, I don't know, you were pretending to be reaching for a pen or a piece of gum, and then you happen to slip this behind you and somehow with one hand, which I can't see you doing, manage to open this thing up. Let's just say, for one, the guy doesn't have time to draw anything, any weapons, he just attacks you. This isn't a lot of blade. Now, you can hit an artery and cause some bleeding, but it's not the movies, and you could cut a major artery on somebody, and they could still fuck you up for about 2-3 minutes, maybe longer. If you get them in the neck, they're still going to fuck you up for about 30 seconds or a minute. From someone who's had to unfortunately euthanize a decent amount of injured wildlife, deer, stuff like that have been hit by vehicles, and as well as, I guess, seen many injured animals that have done amazing physical feats with injuries that you would imagine you'd see from a zombie on The Walking Dead or something ridiculous like that. To see what animals can do under that much adrenaline when somebody is trying to kill them, this little thing, I don't know what you'd have to repeatedly stab them in the heart and lungs many times, and you're going to barely be lucky to get any penetration with that. Again, this is all hypothetical, and if you're in the States and you're talking about self-defense, this is kind of where we're talking about. In Canada, this is purely for self-defense against coyotes, bears, wildlife, angry squirrels or porcupines, whatever's attacking you in your local backyard in Canada. The beavers can get pretty aggressive, but I haven't had to defend myself against too many of them this month. But if you can just keep in mind that when I'm talking self-defense in Canada, we're not using these as self-defense tools, and I'm never carrying this thinking about self-defense, nor am I carrying these for self-defense. These are work tools and utility tools for many different situations that I might run into, not being used for self-defense. But if you had to, could you with this? One of every 10,000 situations you might find a way to get this deployed and disable your attacker. Maybe you pull this out and intimidate him, and he says, well, I don't want no part of this, like, get me out of here. Maybe. Doubtful, but maybe. And we'll talk now about the apocalypse capabilities of this. So this is actually maybe a little more relevant because let's say you were just going out to grab some groceries or going out to grab a burger or something, and you ended up say, I don't really need to put a knife in my pocket. It's a nice hot summer day. Throw shorts and a t-shirt and a pair of flip-flops on, which is not me. I'm just saying hypothetically if that's something you would do, just go out very minimal and say, I'm going to throw just a Leatherman Squirt in my pocket in case whatever, I've got to replace a bike tire. I don't know how to replace a bike tire. I don't think you'd need one of these, but you get the idea. Let's say you're out there doing whatever you're doing. You're out there grabbing ice cream and the world's ending for whatever, pick your apocalypse scenario. And now what you're going to have to do, let's say you got to go build a shelter. Like I mentioned earlier, this thing hypothetically could do enough with the knife and the pliers and everything. You could build a camp if you wanted to use the knife to whittle some wood down for building a fire or adjusting some stuff for a shelter. Hypothetically, you could do all that stuff with this. Not saying you'd want to. You'd probably be better off with a Leatherman Super Tool or a Surge or an OHT or a Wave or a Wingman or literally any multi-tool, even a Gerber. Sorry, Gerber, I know you're better now. But you could get away with any multi-tool bigger than this and probably be happier using it. The Leatherman name is there for a reason. It's got the name that it's got for a reason, and I do not believe something like this is going to crap out on me within the first couple of years of hard use anyways. So would I bring this to an apocalypse? God, if this is all I had, I'd really be disappointed in myself. And you should remember that if this is the situation you put yourself in, you're the only one to blame and you did not prepare enough. Last but definitely not least, we've got the overall hog rating of this. The multi-tool, not a knife, multi-tool with a knife on it. So this hard on gear rating essentially is just how rugged, how usable and abusable do I believe this piece of gear is compared to, say, if you had a solid piece of, I don't know, something damn near unbreakable. If you had something like that and you just wanted to beat on a rock all day and that was your job, that's going to hold up, right? That's got to be an 11 out of 10 on the hog rating. So where does this stand? So just to give you an idea, we got the Esee Izula right now at a 9, which is pretty damn awesome. But I mean, that thing's pretty much indestructible. And the Manix 2 just got the recent review of an 8.5, which is a pretty rugged folding knife. So just to give you an idea where those are at. So what do we call the Squirt? Well, for something I carry on my EDC, I'm a little ashamed to say it, but I got to give this a 4.5. I can't even really give it, I feel like a 5 would be a little too much because I could break this thing almost instantly if I wanted to on almost anything. And I'm pretty destructive as a human being, and I'm not just saying me. Most people could very easily just snap this off on something. But just the nature of how I tend to be on my stuff, I always put a little bit too much into things when I'm reefing on something or trying to cut through anything. So I don't like the idea of anything snapping on me. So again, this is just a backup for many things. And the main purpose of me carrying this is a set of folding pliers. So as far as hard-on gear use, the pliers, honestly, they probably get a 7 or an 8. These seem pretty solid. It's small, obviously, but for the durability and the, I guess, the quality of the build and materials, I think the pliers themselves deserve like a 7 or an 8 on the hog rating. But overall, for the entire tool, which is what we're talking about here, as most people will be using more than just the pliers, we're going to give that a 4.5. So sorry to disappoint. This is a hog channel everyday carry tool, but again, the purpose and the context really do dictate how necessary it is for me to carry something that's damn near bulletproof if I've got something else like the Esee Izula II. So this is a damn awesome multi-tool. Don't let the relatively low hog rating fool you, but this is probably the very best mini multi-tool you're going to be able to pick up. I'm going to check out some more and I'll try some out and do some comparison videos in the future, but I did do quite a bit of research and watch just about every freaking mini multi-tool video you could find on YouTube and watch some different stuff from Leatherman and everything just to really figure out what I wanted to pick up, because I wasn't sold on this at first, and I wasn't sold on whether or not I wanted to pick this up or some kind of a Victorinox, so there's all sorts of different variety that you can get there. I ended up going with this because it's got so many glowing reviews across the board, and I really don't think you can go wrong if you're looking for something small, compact, and pocket-friendly that can get a lot done in a pinch. So for now, feel free to check out my other videos with all kinds of different knife reviews and comparisons and the different stuff that's going to be coming up in the upcoming weeks, months, and years of the Hog channel. And if you want to help this channel grow, please consider subscribing so I can get to the 1,000 subscriber mark, where I'm going to give my first knife away, and it's going to be some kind of a hard use fixed blade or folding knife, something along the lines of these suckers right here. So help me by subscribing, turning the notification bell on, commenting, liking, all of that crap, and Support this channel as well by clicking through the affiliate links down below and ordering your knives and gear through those links, and that'll help me get more gear so I can use and abuse it in the future. Thanks for checking out this review of the Squirt PS4 multi-tool, and this is the Hard On Gear channel signing off.